What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the MLB Swing for the Fences show here on the Run Pure Sports YouTube channel. Couple minutes late on this Thursday morning. We've got Mangone already yawning over there in his palace that he apparently lives in. Mangone, how's it going?
Yeah, I am tired. I haven't had my morning coffee or anything, so we're definitely struggling. But that's okay. We're gonna power through, and we're gonna watch some baseball today. Should be a good day. I am curious. So the 150 Met stacks. Are we doing it with the Dodgers after yesterday, or are we not doing it?
We're gonna try to do it with the Dodgers. That's gonna be one of the goals of this show is to try to find the plays that we can fit these very, very expensive Dodgers in. The Mets, they did definitely let me down last night. I somehow squeaked out a profit on 150 teams. I was actually pretty close to the top, which seems almost impossible, but I had a ton of the Jarren Duran Hamilton stack, mini stack, that 1-2 for the Red Sox. I think they scored like almost 50 combined, something like that. And they were like completely unknown. So we did talk about that on the show. They were like kind of my favorite like mini stacks. So they saved me. Pitching was pretty good. Hunter Brown had a good game. And it was one of those nights, man, going like, if you break even on 150 teams, like you had without a big score, right? You had a pretty good night, like overall. And yeah, obviously if the Mets had come through like I expected them to, could have been an awesome night, but wasn't the case. Only scored 3 runs. And we're now 0 for 2 on full sending it on one team. Busted out on the Reds a couple weeks ago. Mets let me down. Yeah, maybe the Dodgers and Coors Field will get me whole today. How'd your DFS night end up going?
I got saved by, again, a Red Sox mini and Brian Bayo as well. Little 1%, 18.9 wasn't too bad. So I was happy about that. And actually had Nets on it, surprisingly. So it somehow worked out. But yeah, overall, though, it wasn't the worst night. Betting went pretty good. My bet stuff did good. So I was happy about that. I think overall profited because of that mainly. It wasn't really because of my DFS stuff, but hopefully we can change that today and have a pretty big score. And we got a good slate again, 7 games, and we'll be at one of them, so it should be a lot of fun.
Yes, me and Men going with a mandate to the Dodgers and Rockies game at 1 p.m. local time, 3 p.m. Eastern time. And I believe, Mangone, we have the highest individual team total of the season, I believe, with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Creeping up towards 7.5 runs are the Dodgers right now, between 7 and 7.5. But I think it might close at 7.5. It'll be hot, Mangone. We're looking at 90 degrees, some winds blowing out. Hopefully,
did you get us seats under the shade or no? Are we good or no?
I don't know.
Okay, we might have to move. I mean, that's all I'm going to say. If it's going to be as hot as it looks,
we're not sitting in the baking sun. I wouldn't want my beers to get warm. That's not acceptable. So we might have to find some shade. We do have tickets behind home plate, but if that's in the baking sun at Coors Field, then we might be sitting elsewhere. And the rooftop bar at Coors Field, great place to watch a game and maybe mingle a little bit, Mangone. So we'll see what happens at the Rockies game this afternoon. We do have 7 games to talk about. Pretty good Thursday morning slate. There is almost no action in the baseball streets tonight. There is the game at, I don't recall the name of the field, but it's like the oldest professional baseball field that's been used. I think the Negro Leagues play there, so that could be cool to watch. But we'll be, at least I'll be kind of checking out of baseball once we get this Dodgers lineup and we can load those guys in, and then we'll be heading down to Coors Field, hopefully watching the Dodgers score 20 runs. We shall see. With that, Mangone, let's get into this slate. We start with Arizona and the Washington Nationals. Mackenzie Gore pitching for the Nationals. We've been a fan of Gore here at RPS. He's been pretty damn good this year. High strikeout upside every time he takes a mound, in my opinion. Had one of his best starts of the year last time out against Miami, a team that is, weak against left-handed pitching, but still 10 strikeouts, 7 strong innings. Gore has actually scored 30-plus points in 3 of his last 5 frankly, there's not that many pitchers who have had that many 30-plus games this season, especially 3 in their last 5. So I think Gore, 8,900, even in a tough matchup here against Arizona, who has killed lefties. I think he's interesting. I'm seeing Saber Mangone has him as the highest owned pitcher on this slate, which that feels kind of crazy to me given the difficulty of this matchup. And Gore does give up quite a bit of power to right-handed hitters. I see they moved him down, so they got him at the 3rd highest owned, but still 30% owned for Mackenzie Gore. I think he's definitely worth consideration. And then Ryan Nelson on the other side. I almost played him in his last start against the White Sox only because it was the White Sox, but his numbers were so bad I just couldn't pull the trigger. Should have done it. He scored 27 points, his best start of the year. Last time out against Chicago, 8 strikeouts in that game. Tougher matchup here by far. Obviously going to DC to face a lefty-heavy Nationals team. I still have a tiny bit of interest in Nelson just because of his price point, right? He's 5,600, and because of the slate, right? Obviously, you want Ohtani, Freeman, Teoscar, Will Smith. Those guys are crazy expensive. So to get them, you have to make sacrifices somewhere. I might be willing to do it on a few Ryan Nelson teams. And then, honestly, I think the bats on both sides of this game are in play. So we start this slate with the most wishy-washy take of all time. Both pitchers and all the bats are in play. What do you think, Mango?
Yeah, he definitely got a little wishy-washy there for sure. It's all good though. I don't love the Rin Nelson thing just because I think there's other cheap options I'd rather take chances on. But I understand your argument. I haven't liked picking on the Nationals that much. But, yeah, we'll talk about it as we dive through though. I don't think Nelson's the guy for me. I think
it's just purely it's just a price play if you're trying to play the Dodgers guys, which I really want those guys. I mean, if the Dodgers, if that top 5 for the Dodgers puts up, I mean, they could put up 100 combined points pretty easily, I think. Yeah. And you might need the cheap pitchers, even if he gives you, 10 fantasy points or something.
To be fair, I asked someone in the Discord yesterday. They played Ohtani, Freeman, and Teoscar Hernandez. And when I ran all my teams, I never found a Dodger team that had all 3. Not that I was looking for it, but I would always look for when I was skimming through the teams, which ones have at least 2 of them. And it was always Freeman or Ohtani. I couldn't even find Teoscar Hernandez ones. And the guy played whoever the Orioles pitcher was yesterday, that young kid. They played him. Yeah, because you had to, right? Like you just couldn't get all those guys in. And he even explained like the values he had with Povich. Like he had Barger as a value. And like
when I played, I almost won the 250 2 days ago. I had the full Dodgers 5-man. It was Ohtani, Freeman, Will Smith, Teoscar, and Pages. And the only way to get it was to play like the cheapest viable pitchers who were 6K, and then like a 20, all your other positions were like 2,200, 24. Like you literally had like, 10 options to make the lineup fit, but it worked. It almost won because the Dodgers absolutely smashed, which obviously could be the case again today.
Well, you need pitching to be like poor as well, right? That's another factor, of course. And I mean, that was a good slate for that. And I think you could make some arguments that this isn't an amazing pitching slate, right? Like there's arms we like, but I think there's past the failure for them. So I think
all of these pitchers, the high-end pitchers, aren't complete locks, 100%.
You think they're complete locks?
They aren't.
Oh, yes. Agreed. That's what I'm saying too. I think we're on board with that. So you can get away with the punt option. Like for instance, if Luis Gil drops like 18, well, I mean, the Rin Nelson 10 might be better, right? I mean, it just might because of, point per dollar and what the bats do. So totally understand that. We'll talk about Mackenzie Gore because I think he's going to be very chalky. And I love Mackenzie Gore. He's someone that I've played most of the year. Whenever he's low owned, I'm all over him. In this specific spot for 8,900, I just don't know if I need to do it. I just think this Arizona matchup's really tough. I do not like when we have lefties against Arizona. It's just not a great spot. You brought up a good point where listen, Mackenzie Gore is great stuff, but he can give up power at times. And, when you got Christian Walker in there, Gurriel, Suarez, I mean, they have the mashers in there. Randall Grichuk is up at the top in the 2-hole. It's definitely a lineup full of righties. The only lefties they got in there today are Marte, who's in there every single day, Jake McCarthy, who is just in there for Corbin Carroll, right? And then Tucker Barnhart. So, and he's a switch hitter. So only 2 lefties that you have to worry about here. So I think overall, I like Arizona more than I like the Washington Nationals side, right? I think this Arizona team is an interesting leverage play. I don't think they're a team that'll pop in projections when you kind of run stuff. But I do think if you're talking leverage, sometimes there's leverage plays I like and sometimes there's ones I don't like. This is one I actually think is really intriguing on a 7-game slate.
I'm 100% with you. I like these Arizona bats. I don't know how much I'll end up with just because I'm trying to get in the Dodgers guys, right? And they're expensive too, Arizona is. So, but absolutely. These are this is the exact team that you would, if you wanted to stack against the chalky Mackenzie Gore. The Nationals are like the team to do it with, right? All that ready power, hot, humid, winds blowing out in Washington, D.C. It makes a lot of sense. So I will definitely have these Diamondbacks bats mixed into my lineups, no question about it. And I'm not going to end up with much Mackenzie Gore. There's no question he could go out there and shove and put up 25, 30 fantasy points. It's absolutely possible. But on this particular slate where we're trying to pay for bats, I'm just not going to pay the $9K for Gore in, frankly, one of his toughest matchups that he's had all season. So I'll be looking elsewhere. I get it why people are playing Gore, but probably not for me. What about Nelson? Are you willing to roll the dice on a Ryan Nelson, Mango?
He's someone I'll leave in the pool, but I just think I'm going to get more of these cheaper pitchers that I like instead. We'll see though. The reason why I kind of leave it open is the cheaper pitchers I'm looking at are not they're not 5.6K. They're in the 6 and 7K range. I don't know if the math is going to make that work. So I'll leave it open because I do understand how the math works. And your point is definitely, it definitely makes sense.
Yeah. If you play Ryan Nelson, I will have him on some lineups. It's a play and pray. I guess I would use the term there. You're not going to be at all surprised if he goes negative or something like that. But
No.
He has okay stuff. The Diamondbacks have a weird amount of faith in him. I mean, he's kind of sucked this year. They keep rolling him out there every 5 days. They let him throw 100 pitches if he's pitching well. So, yeah, I think there is some appeal there at 5,600. Obviously, could go south in a hurry for sure.
I think because we haven't gotten the Nationals lineup yet, which does matter, CJ Abrams got scratched the other day.
He's going to be out, I think. Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. So maybe that is another nice little bump that helps Nelson out there. So we'll see what the lineup is. Sometimes we get weird lineups on these day games.
Yeah, not an amazing lineup the Nationals are rolling out there, which obviously adds some appeal to Mr. Ryan Nelson. Let's get to Seattle and the Cleveland Guardians up next. Luis Castillo pitching for the Mariners here. He's been very Luis Castillo-like this season, has been good. Strikeouts are usually there, but he, like all the other Seattle pitchers, does not do nearly as well on the road as he does at home. Specifically his strikeout to walk ratio at home compared to on the road is just way worse on the road. He faces this Guardians team that makes a ton of contact. I do think you'll get Castillo low owned on this slate, Mangone, but I'm personally not going to Luis Castillo at 9,200 here. It's a little bit similar to Mackenzie Gore. Good pitcher, good strikeout pitcher, but a tough matchup in a little bit of a different way. For the Diamondbacks, it's that they have power. For the Guardians, it's that they just make so much contact. I very rarely play right-handed pitchers against them. I'm not going to do it on this slate. Hot, humid in Cleveland. The ball will be flying specifically to right field. And then on the other side, you've got Logan Allen. I know he is on your very short list of aces in Major League Baseball. It's been a rough ride for Logan Allen this season, but he is cheap, 7.2K. He does get a Mariners team that strikes out a lot. I do worry about the right-handed power against him in this matchup, but the strikeouts could be there, and he's a reasonable price point. So I sadly, Mangone, might have to join you on the Logan Allen train this afternoon. What are you doing with Seattle and Cleveland here?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, if you looked at Logan Allen's last 5 games, they're not bad, DC. I mean, they get the Seattle Mariners as well. If you were pitching today against the Seattle Mariners, I would probably put you in the pool so I could get
that would be a bad mistake, but I appreciate it.
I would consider it, though. It gets me all the bats, right? So I just think Logan Allen has to be firmly in play today. And honestly, you could make the case for Seattle being an interesting leverage play, or not leverage play, an interesting contrarian low-owned play, because I don't think anyone's going to Seattle today. Maybe they are. They always pop, I feel like. And they're not as low-owned as I thought. So, but they provide value for our lineups, right? I was trying to think of when you play Ohtani, you're going to need a ton of value throughout your lineups with mini stacks. And one of the minis that will make a lot of sense is the Seattle Mariners, because look up and down this lineup. Their highest expensive guy besides Julio Rodriguez is Dylan Moore for 4K. Got a bunch of guys in the 2K range. So there's a lot of ways to make it work. So I think both sides are in play, but I prefer the Logan Allen side more. Luis Castillo, I don't want to play here. He's on the road. I know he's had struggles. I think his home road split's been pretty bad this season.
They're bad. He's a complete X-off for me, even in 150. I'm just not playing Luis Castillo here.
Yeah, especially against the Guardians. And the Guardians are hitting the ball well. And this Guardians team is getting kind of sneaky better like that. Whenever there's a pretty big bat, or not, I don't know if big bat's the word for it, but a really good addition throughout the season, like Fry, when you put someone like him in there, the lineup just looks a lot better, right? Now you have Tyler Freeman in the 8-hole, not somewhere in the 2-hole randomly when one guy's out. It's a better lineup for sure. So I think I don't even mind the Guardians here.
I actually like them quite a bit, man, going as contrarian stack here.
Yeah, the only issue you run into with the Guardians is listen, if you play the Guardians, you probably don't get any Dodgers, which if you don't want Dodgers, then that's fine, right? It's just they are pricey. Fry is 5K. Naylor at 4.8, I like him a lot. Jose Ramirez at 6.1. Steven Kwan is 5.2. They're just very expensive for the names you're getting. It doesn't I don't know. It's the Guardians have never had 4 guys that are 5K or more, basically. And I'm just basically saying Josh Naylor's 5K, right? He's 4.8K. So this lineup's just pricey. I do think this is a team that if you are ignoring Dodger stacks, from a contrarian perspective, I think they got to be in the conversation.
Yeah. Left-handed power is what you want in Cleveland on days like today. Just in general. It's way easier to hit home runs to right field. That's the strength of the Guardians. Most of the hitters that you'd want to play outside David Fry do swing from the left side. Josh Naylor's been swinging a good bat all season. He's got power. And what you want against Luis Castillo is the same thing, left-handed power. He's got a 210 ISO given up to lefties over the course of the last 2 seasons. That number goes up even further when you look at his numbers on the road specifically. And then you throw in this park, which is going to play very, very well for left-handed power. If you get a fly ball out to right field today in Cleveland, it's got a very good chance to leave the yard. So I'm going to get specifically Josh Naylor at 4,800 in a decent amount of lineups. It's obviously tough because both Ohtani and Freeman are first base eligible as well. But yeah, on lineups I don't have them, I will get some Naylor in there. The Mariners, I won't be surprised if they hit a couple home runs off of Logan Allen. The problem with going up against Cleveland is the bullpen, man, is elite after Logan Allen. And I think, especially with right-handed arms, I think could shut down this Mariners lineup if they don't do a ton of damage against Logan Allen. Still interesting. Guys like Mitch Garver are cheap. Dylan Moore is relatively cheap. Ty France, Haniger. They've got some decent right-handed power, but I'm on the Guardian side of this game, both pitching-wise with Logan Allen and hitting-wise. I think they're going to do some damage here to Luis Castillo. Probably at pretty low ownership. Schneemann at 2,500 I think is a totally viable play. Really any bats that are okay under 3K are decent plays on this slate where, we're scrapping for value. It is just that kind of slate with the Dodgers in Coors Field. Let's get to Tampa Bay and Minnesota next. We've got Simeon Woods Richardson pitching for Minnesota. I used him in his last start that did not go well against the Oakland A's, just 4 fantasy points in that one. Frankly, though, man, probably going back to him here. Right-handed heavy lineup from the Rays. Not a lineup that I'm super scared of. Richardson is a fine pitcher. I do feel safer with him than a guy like Ryan Nelson and even Logan Allen. I think I prefer Richardson among those 3 cheaper guys. Zach Littell pitching for the Rays. He's been okay this year. I don't think I'm going back to it. Taj Bradley yesterday, played a bunch of him. He was just okay. Limited runs, but not a ton of strikeouts. Not a ton of interest in Littell at 8K. I think Richardson is the play to look at here. Pretty cool. Winds blowing in Minneapolis. I don't see myself going to a lot of bats here, but Royce Lewis, I talked about him as an elite one-off yesterday. Came through, as he always does, what he scored, 22 fantasy points. He'll be low-owned again, smashes righties, and can certainly do it against Littell. So I don't mind that play. I don't think I'll get to too much of it today. Mangone, what are you doing with Tampa Bay and Minnesota?
Yeah, I didn't get to Royce Lewis yesterday, but I did think the Royce Lewis call was great, and I tried to. It just never worked.
I had to, on my final 150, one of my last change, you're looking through your player exposures, and you're trying to make sure you got it. And I was like, oh, shit, it only has Royce Lewis on 2% of my lineup. So I manually bumped him up to 7 or 8%, which turned out to be a good move. But sometimes you don't catch those things, and you're like, oh, I love that guy. And I don't have much of them. It almost happened to me yesterday with Royce Lewis.
It always depends on the time crunch. So if I try to always build in that time. And if I ever have a run where it's oh, the only thing I'm missing is Royce Lewis, then I'm like, okay, I can manually adjust this myself and figure it out. So, but I do think I think I'm with you on going with Woods Richardson over Logan Allen if I could only pick one. And I think the reason why is the weather. It's a lot cooler there in Minnesota. I think both are really good plays though. I think that's the small factor. I mean, it's a big difference in the weather. It's 68 and the wind's blowing in. It's definitely not nothing for sure there. And it's not like that's an easy ballpark to hit in. So I think overall, I'm going to really like him. I think Woods Richardson is going to be someone that I get a lot of exposure to. He's going to be probably one of my higher owned value pitchers on the slate. So I like him and I like Logan Allen. Those are 2 of the values that I like so far. And why I was saying, I don't know if I'm going to get the Nelson as much. We'll see. Obviously, again, he's way cheaper than them. There's definitely a difference in price. But at 7.4K, I think he's a good play. And I don't love Zach Little here. I don't think I want to take some chances on Littell. It just doesn't seem like the most ideal spot to do it. He's 8K, and if I'm going to already spend 8K on a pitcher, I'd rather find ways up to some other pitching options. I just don't think he's worth it. I know I like to pick on the Twins at times. I just don't think it's the spot. And I know you talked about how Littell can get hit hard at times, kind of like we talked about with Taj Bradley. So if that's the case, I mean, I think the Twins, they probably have some value here that can't get completely ignored, like a Max Kepler at 4.2 or like a Trevor Larnach at 3.9. Those guys as one-offs are interesting. I wish they were a little bit cheaper, but, I think those guys they're in play today. I was hoping to get them at maybe 3.4 or 3.2 as one-off options, but they have hit the ball a little bit better this year. So obviously that's the reason why.
Yeah. Final note, for people riding the Simeon Woods Richardson train or considering it at least. Twins used 5 guys out of their bullpen yesterday. A lot of pitches from the bullpen. It's a gas bullpen in general. The closer, Yohan Duran, has pitched 2 days in a row. So Richardson does have a quick hook sometimes. I don't think that'll be the case today unless it gets really bad. Then obviously, they'll call him. But if he's pitching okay, I think we could see potentially one of the higher pitch counts for Woods Richardson of the season, which hopefully is a good thing. Sometimes they, when you ask a pitcher to go that extra inning and they're kind of gassed out, it turns south. But I do think it's overall a good thing for Woods Richardson. Would expect 90-plus pitches out of him today, assuming he's pitching at least decently well. It's good too. Houston and the Chicago White Sox up next. We've got Spencer Arrighetti pitching for Houston, who our friends over at SaberSim do have as the highest owned pitcher on the slate. Makes sense to me at 7,600. I know he's coming off pretty awful, very awful outing against the Detroit Tigers. And that outing, it was the outing that Verlander was scratched with the neck stiffness. So it was a late scratch, and they moved Arrighetti up one day, which, I know it sounds like I'm making excuses for him, which maybe I am. But that can throw a pitcher off their rhythm, right? You're not planning to pitch that day, and then all of a sudden, a couple hours before game time, it's like, oh, you're up. And, who knows? Who knows what he was doing the night before if he wasn't planning to pitch or whatever it was. So he's been okay on the season. He's had like that brutal outing against Detroit, and then his first outing of the year back on April 10th was horrible against Kansas City. Other than that, he's been pretty solid for the most part. So I kind of think his season-long stats don't reflect his true talent. I'm not saying he's a world beater or anything like that, but at 7,600, listen, Mangone, we just have to consider everybody against the Chicago White Sox team. They're absolutely awful. Hunter Brown had a big night last night. I think Arrighetti, I like Hunter Brown better long-term, but I don't think Arrighetti's that far behind. I like him a lot on this particular slate at 7,600. Can't say the same for Chris Flexen. He's just really hard for me to click on to roster. Astros have been kind of disappointing recently. We've seen some decent performances against them. I don't see myself going to Flexen, though, even at 6K. It's Arrighetti for me, and then Houston, another team. I mean, we've talked about a number of teams, right? You can certainly play the Diamondbacks. The Nationals look okay. We both like the Guardians, the Seattle right-handed power, but throw the Houston Astros in the bucket of maybe a kind of sneaky team today. Everybody's looking to Coors Field. Chris Flexen is awful. So is that White Sox bullpen. I don't hate the Astros here. What are you doing with the Astros and the White Sox today, Mango?
Yeah, I don't know if I want to love the Astros today. Is Jordan in the lineup or out? Do we know? Because I know he was dealing with the family thing.
He should be in there today, but I don't. No, we do have it. He's in there today, Jordan Alvarez.
Okay, we do have the lineup. Okay, good.
Yep.
If he wasn't in, I was just going to fade him, but that definitely does change it. I definitely have to think a little bit on it more. Because I don't think this bottom half of the lineup's that great.
It's not.
So let me talk about the pitching first. So Arrighetti is going to be very high up, right? Like he is going to be 30 plus. Like I think he gets steamed to 40%.
Possible. Yep.
So now my question is, I know you don't want to play Chris Flexen, but at what ownership would you play Chris Flexen over Arrighetti? That's the question I have for you. Because for me, I see 12% versus 33 on Saber. I don't love that number, but if the number becomes like, I don't know, 5% versus like 35, I'm interested. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think at 3 times the difference, I don't love it. But I think when you get further in, it becomes intriguing. And maybe you could even consider at 3 times the difference in ownership with the ownership that the Astros are going to get. Flexen isn't the worst play over him. That's all I'm kind of getting at here.
The 12% that Saber has Flexen projected for is too high for me.
It is.
To play Flexen. And people will argue this, and I'm not saying I'm necessarily right, but in my opinion, it does matter if a player is 3% versus 12% out, especially
right.
at pitcher. I know that's not the general casual DFS player's opinion, but it is my opinion, and 12% is too high for me on Chris Flexen. I actually don't think he'll come in that high, but I'll play Ryan Nelson at 4% over Flexen at 12%, I guess would be the right. Nelson's even a little bit cheaper. I think Nelson has more talent. I think Nelson has a better matchup. So for me, I don't want to play both those guys, I don't think, in the same lineup. So Nelson over Flexen for me, I guess would be kind of a roundabout way of answering your question.
Yeah. So like I got Bayo at 1% yesterday and I was shocked. Like 1% I didn't see coming. I could see below 5% on Flexen. No one wants to click on Chris Flexen against the Astros. You know what I mean? It's just not a good spot. And I don't know. I'm going to consider clicking on it. That's all. Just because if I'm playing these Dodgers lineups, okay, what is the difference between, like, for instance, like with an ace, if you have Freddie Peralta and Cole Reagans, like yesterday, 2 guys we got to make a decision between. Well, Cole Reagans could easily get 10, and Freddie Peralta could get like, I don't know, like 30 or 35. The gap between aces is a lot larger typically than what the gap is going to be between cheap pitching options. Of course, could a cheap pitcher get like -10? Sure. But if your pitcher gets like -10, you were going to lose anyways. You know what I mean? There's nothing you can do about it. The point I'm getting at is when you talk about cheap pitchers, I think the range of outcomes is not as wide. And because it's not as wide, I am okay embracing lower owned pitchers over the way higher owned pitchers. It could be JT Hayes and draft cheap pitching out there, right? I'm just playing the math game with these pitchers. So if no one's going to play Chris Flexen, I'm just going to consider it, especially if I want to jam in these Dodgers bats. And if everyone is also playing Arrighetti. Right now, I lean being even with the field or underweight on Arrighetti and trying to play more of these other cheap pitchers that we've discussed. But I get it. It's not comfortable. Trust me. I don't think it's a comfortable thing, but it's baseball. Like, weird things can happen. We saw a Baltimore Orioles 4-man and like, I think a 4-man Red Sox win together in the main yesterday. And then I think someone said like a 2-1-1-1-1 one yesterday with like Sean Manaea and Andrew Heaney. Like, I'm going to embrace these lower owned pitchers when someone like Spencer Arrighetti is 30 to 40% owned.
I've been touting cheap, low owned pitchers for a long time. I maintain I think they are good ways to play when there are bats to spend for. I do feel like, Mangone, prior to this season, and maybe even prior to like the last month or two of this season, I feel like you are a guy who was spending up for pitching, and you've come around. You're like on the DC train of rolling the dice with these guys. What changed? You like have a epiphany? Did come to Jesus moment? What changed for you, Mangone? I love to see it, but I'm curious because it does. Tell me if I'm wrong, but it does seem like you've kind of switched your stance on your approach to pitching a little bit.
Yeah, I've switched my approach on pitching, and I guess naturally it's happened where the top end pitchers I haven't loved as much, and it's partially because I just think at the ownership they get versus taking chances on these low owned options. Like when those high owned guys fail, it puts you in a prime position to like win. Like it really does. And of course, if you play Kevin Gausman and he gets 40 against the Oakland A's like he did that one day, I'm not going to win. Like I lost that day, but I'm okay with it because I think it has helped me out. And just looking at my top like 1% teams, and I don't know, I think more so looking at that and also watching like some of the after hour stuff, because I've done a lot of that with like that playbook, just seeing these like top end pitchers fail. Like there's been a couple spots where I've wrote on that playbook, like you got to play this guy and like you just can't not play him. And then like afterwards, he's not even on the winner. And I'm just like shocked.
You have to have decent bankroll management to play this way. You have to be willing to lose, to take a negative from a pitcher and move on to the next day and not be like emotionally scarred or something. Because most people, they say they embrace the variance of DFS, but they don't play that way, right? And they play the chalk, they play the safer pitchers, and just my opinion. If you're trying to win a GPP, which we all are, it's not the best way to get to the top. I don't think.
Like I kicked myself a little bit yesterday because I had something I had to do in the morning and I couldn't really play the morning slate. I was just busy and it just is what it is. And Balak Ship stacking against Tariq Skubal. And I'll admit I stacked against Tariq Skubal a couple weeks before because I felt like the blow up was coming based on some of the stuff I was looking at. And let me tell you, the way the Braves had been playing, I probably would have played some Braves on that slate, right? I don't know if I would have for sure got Sean Murphy in there, but what I'm getting at is like, when you play every single day, you see these spots that you think are, eventually going to blow up and you want to keep attacking it. And you just got to keep going over and over and playing it. And so I kind of kicked myself a little bit about that. And I'm not going to just change my strategy today because I don't have any pitchers to go to, right? You know what I mean? Like, I think Spencer Arrighetti's a bad play. I just do. I think he's one of the highest owned pitchers on the slate. And if he gets you 10 DK points, you're not going to be happy. You could maybe win with the 10 DK points, but you're not going to be happy with 10.
So the only thing we disagree on, I'm going to play Arrighetti on this slate just because of it's a smaller slate, lack of pitching options. I do think he's more talented than his stats suggest in the matchup against Chicago. For me, at the ownership, I'm willing to eat it on this slate. The Skubal thing, I made a mistake yesterday. I faded him a Scooble. I just wasn't willing to eat the 50% ownership on a slate where I did like a lot of other reasonable pitchers. I should have been on Sean Murphy. I pride myself in like picking off one-offs against the chalk pitchers. At catcher, cheap, power. I should have been on him. I did have an okay early slate, but 4% Sean Murphy was an elite play against Tarek Skubal, and I was kicking myself for not doing it, for missing that. It was, sometimes you got to look yourself in the mirror and say, yeah, that was a play I should have been on. That was certainly the case for me when I was fading Skubal anyway. That brings us to Coors Field, Mangone. We'll be at this game. Dodgers and the Rockies, 12 total. The Dodgers, I mentioned this previously, one of, if not the highest team totals of the year, sitting around 7.4 runs. Right now, they get Ty Block, who soft-tossing lefty. He's actually been, I guess, okay at Coors Field this season. He is better against left-handed bats, at least, yeah. I mean, quite a bit better. So it is, I guess, right-handed bats that you want to play, but that's not going to scare me off of Ohtani and Freeman, who both can hit lefties fine. He doesn't miss many bats against fellow lefties, does Ty Block. It's just he limits the power a little bit better. But I'm willing to kind of overlook that statistical anomaly and play these Dodgers anyway. I don't think we have the lineup for them. I hope it's not too late. I hope we're not sitting around all day waiting for this Dodgers lineup, because listen, I can't leave the house till we get the Dodgers lineup. So I'll be here until then, and then probably out of here shortly after. But yeah, gotta love the Dodgers here. Will Smith got the day off yesterday. He should be back in there in the 2-hole. Teoscar Hernandez got removed from the game. I think he did. I think he should be back in there today. I think he's an awesome play. And then a little bit of a weird scenario here, man, going with the Dodgers, where they've got the lefty starter and then no more lefties available in the pen, which means it will be right-handed pitchers, I believe exclusively, coming out of the pen for the Rockies, which means a bunch of these hitters at the back of the lineup, or the projected back of the lineup, are pinch hit risks. I think they're going to start, Enrique Hernandez, Vargas, Taylor, but all three of those guys, I think, could be out of this game relatively early for Jason Hayward, Lux, and Biggio. I think all three could come in early because it's going to be right-handed pitchers the rest of the way. Block, I mean, he might only make it, we're hoping, 4 innings, right? 4 or 5 innings. So I'm probably not going to play the back half of this Dodgers lineup. I know a lot of people will because it's cheap and, it's Ty Block, but I'm probably looking elsewhere. And maybe I've still got some booze in my system from last night, but I'm considering some of these Dodgers bench bats, specifically Jason Hayward, who hit the grand slam pinch hit the other night. I think he could be in there in the 4th or 5th inning of this game at 0.1% ownership. Get 2 or 3 at bats maybe in Coors Field against bad right-handed pitching. I know you're not going to do that, Mangone, but no one else will. It'll just be me, but I'm considering it. Anyway, love the Dodgers here. Gavin Stone, I think, is in consideration. Dodgers bullpen a little bit gassed as well. It's a pretty good pitcher, and this Rockies team rather is pretty awful against right-handed pitching in general. Long spiel for me, but what are you doing with Dodgers and Rockies, Mangone?
Yeah, I was going to add what DC provided is not financial advice.
We need a disclaimer here. That should be every show, but yeah, especially
the Jason Hayward thing. I mean, it's not, if you're playing 150.
It was kind of convincing, wasn't it? You're kind of like, that's not the craziest idea.
Well, because I know you're playing 150, so it's like, if 5 of your 145 you decide to do it, is it the craziest idea? No.
Style points too. If you win with Jason Hayward after calling it on the show, I mean, come on, it doesn't get much better than that. And you're at the game watching him hit a home run in the 9th inning.
I might have to make one. I mean, we'll see. I don't think I will, but And I will say, I was making fun of Jason Hayward the other day to one of my buddies, and he's like, he's been playing great for us this year.
He smashes righties, man. Like,
he has been playing good this year. I'll give him
yeah.
that, but he sucks. But he's definitely had a good year. Yeah, so obviously going to like these Dodgers for sure. It's going to be really hot, winds blowing out. I mean, it's a great spot for these guys. I'm definitely going to have some Dodgers today. Sometimes in these situations, I like to do 4-man stacks. If I just think they're like the most popular offense by like a mile, I'll just do like 4-mans, and I think those could be, unique. Like, let's say I haven't built this, but let's say you just played the 4 studs and you didn't even play the cheap guys. Like, I don't know what your team would look like. It might be hard to make, but that would be unique. Like, people are not going to do that. If you build with an optimizer, it shoves those cheap guys in all the time because you need the salary relief for sure. So that's kind of my takeaway on Dodgers. I want to play them. I think they're really good plays. I'll just find unique ways to play them. I'll find unique ways. DC's unique way will be playing Jason Hayward off the bench, I guess. And then I think you're right about Gavin Stone. Like, I think he's in play. But my biggest concern with Gavin Stone is I do think this Rockies lineup is getting better. I talked about it yesterday. Me and Big T were both on board with that. Like, I think there's good plays. And I also don't know if at 7-8 I for sure want to play Gavin Stone. He's in that like weird price range where he's not too expensive, but he's like close enough to Simone Woods-Richardson where you can make that case like, okay, I could maybe take a shot on Gavin Stone. So it feels like a spot where I'll play both sides. I think the Rockies are in play from a mini stack and a main stack just because they're in Coors, it's hot out. And I think Gavin Stone isn't the craziest idea. So I think this is a spot where you can play both sides on that Dodgers Rockies side.
Yeah, Stone just not missing many bats, at least in terms of the strikeouts, is my concern there. He did face the Rockies. It was outside Coors, but he did have one of his best strikeouts games of the season there with 6 strikeouts over 5 innings. Looking up the bullpen here, I think that matters a lot for Stone. Because
it definitely does, because Dave Roberts loves to put guys.
Yeah, they've got enough guys there where they certainly wouldn't have to give him a big leash. I think they would let him go if he is pitching well. Last 2 outings, 94 and 101 pitches. So, yeah, I'll probably mix in some Gavin Stone against this Rockies lineup. I know they're getting a little better, but there is still a lot of strikeouts to be had if you're on your game against the Rockies. So,
DC,
you're laughing at something, man. Going, what is it?
Yeah, I had an idea that last night, and I want to bring it up. What if you go to the game stacking 150 Coors lineups or Dodgers, and I went to the game and I just stacked the pitchers 150 times. Now, it probably won't happen, but I thought it'd be a funny idea if I just showed up and had 150 of the pitchers.
Well, listen, you do live in that mansion with the grand piano, so you apparently have plenty of money to burn that I don't. And if you want to play 150 tie block lineups, then I welcome your risky endeavor. I like to gamble and I'm willing to roll the dice, but I'm not going to play any tie block. I can't get with you on that. But yeah, by all means, Mangone, I would love to see you with 150 tie block lineups. I would enjoy your misery very, very much at Coors Field this afternoon.
I won't be doing that, so I won't be paying the rake. You're okay.
Coward. I'm playing Jason Hayward. You should play Ty Block. That seems fair. Royals and A's up next. We've got Seth Lugo pitching for the Kansas City Royals. 9,500. He's been awesome this season, frankly. A little bit of hiccups these last 3 starts. Not a huge strikeout guy, but certainly could be in this game against the Oakland A's, who strike out as much or more than anyone in baseball. Obviously, a good place to pitch as well in Oakland. I like Seth Lugo here, Mangone, at 9,500. I don't know how much I'm going to get to him, but I do think he's going to have a good game. I do think he is definitely a reasonable play. He gets up to 100 pitches pretty much every start. And actually, looking at his last 3 games, against the Dodgers in LA, against the Yankees in Cleveland, that's about as tough as it gets for a right-handed pitcher for a 3-game run. So might actually have more interest in Seth Lugo than I initially expressed. I think, his last 3 games have kind of held down his production for sure. We go up against Mitch Spence. I've played him some this year. He's been okay. I don't think he's the craziest play at 6,600. We've seen this Royals team go a little bit quiet recently for the most part. Not a ton of strikeouts in the Royals lineup, but a good place to pitch. He's at home. He's cheap. He does have duration on his side, been averaging 90 pitches or so over his last 4 starts. So I throw Spence, frankly, in the Logan Allen, Ryan Nelson, Spencer Arrighetti pool where, you're kind of hoping to get lucky, frankly, with Mitch Spence, but it happens at pitching. It happens every slate, right? We have cheap pitchers who nobody wants, put up a decent score. You had Brian Bayo yesterday. It just happens. So I think Mitch Spence is certainly capable of it. I'll have some exposure to both these pitchers. Not going to a lot for bats here. What are you doing? Man, going with the Royals and the Oakland A's.
Yeah, I like Mitch Spence a lot, actually. He's definitely going to be one that I think, I don't think a lot of people are going to Mitch Spence today. I talked about how we talked yesterday a little bit about it. I don't love this Royals team right now, and I'm not playing them, and I'm going to play Spence. His price is 6.6K. I think he's definitely a good play. So I'll be overweight on him.
3% owned on Spence? Yeah, sign me up for that one. I'm in.
Yeah, that sounds great to me. Yeah. I think he's got a little more upside than he's shown too this year. So I'm on the Mitch Spence train for sure. Now I don't I'm not going to love the expensive pitchers. There's a good chance I don't even play any of them today. We'll have to see. But I think if I have to pick one between Gil and Lugo, I think just based on the price and matchup, it's Lugo, right? I get him for $1,300 less. I get him against the Oakland A's in that ballpark. It's just a 10 times better spot. Now, Luis Gil, I love him. He's a great pitcher. He's been awesome this year, but he's 10.8K and playing Baltimore in Yankee Stadium. It just seems like you play Lugo over Gil. If you were only playing one team and you wanted to spend up at pitcher, I would go Lugo over Gil just because of the salary. Now, if it was just raw points, that'd be an interesting conversation. But I think that the salary relief, you would need it, right? You're not just going to have, 12K left at pitcher and you can just play whoever you want at pitcher. That's likely not happening today.
No, that will not be happening to me, certainly. Yeah. So we're both in on Lugo and Luis Gil, Mangone. I do need to correct you every time that we're on a show with Luis Gil. Listen, this guy's a Cy Young candidate. Potential World Series MVP. You need to learn how to say his name. It's time, man. Go Luis Gil.
That's fair. It's Luis Gil, and he might be of the Rookie of the Years. He's in the conversation, right? For AL.
Oh yeah,
he's got to be. So
yeah, he's been phenomenal, Luis Gil. And that is our last game on the slate: Baltimore and the New York Yankees. What do we have? A 8.5 total here in New York, 90 degrees, 40% humidity, crosswinds out to left field in New York. Luis Gil, most expensive pitcher on the slate by a wide margin, $1,300 over Seth Lugo. I have been on a lot of Luis Gil this year, and I will have 0 or next to 0 on this slate. I'm just not paying the 10.8K price tag in a hard pitching environment in New York against, of course, a juggernaut Orioles team in general. It's just a no thanks for me on Luis Gil. So I will pass today. And yeah, I'll be back on, I'm sure, shortly on Luis Gil, but I'm just not doing it in today's game. Sounds like you are on the same page there. Just doesn't make sense to me to play Luis Gil against Baltimore with the available bats that we have. So no Gil for me. I won't play much many Orioles bats either. I do think the left-handed power is okay. Henderson, Rushman, O'Hearn, but frankly, I'm just not going to get to many of those guys. And then Cole Irvin pitching for the Baltimore Orioles. Do we know if Aaron Judge is going to be in the lineup here? He missed yesterday with that hand contusion. So not sure on Aaron Judge. I don't think we have the lineup yet. Obviously, he would be a fine play. Right-handed power does play pretty well against Cole Irvin. But for the most part, Mangone, I'm honestly just going to be kind of piecing out on this game. What are you doing with Yankees and Orioles?
Yeah, I mean, if we don't get this Yankees lineup for a very long time, you will get Aaron Judge at no ownership, right? He will just not even be owned because everyone is spending their salary on other options. My advice would be let's say this slate starts out and let's say you have like Wood Richardson and he has like a really bad game and it's just like not going well. I would consider swapping some of your Dodger stacks to Yankee stacks is like a way to like get your team back in it. That's if your team feels like super dead, right? Now, of course,
or swap to anybody, frankly. But yeah, Yankees makes sense.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, if you have Dodgers in the lineup, like, if you swap it to the Yankees, I'm just saying you're going to get judged at, like, no ownership today. It's just that's not and it's against Cole Irvin, a soft-tossing lefty. That's all. So yeah. I don't think the Yankees are completely out of play for me. I think they're in play against Cole Irvin. Cole Irvin is just not a good pitcher, soft-tossing guy, tries to get ground balls, and when it doesn't go well for him, it's not going to go well, and the Yankees are going to smash him. This Yankees offense is still a good offense. Yeah, they've cooled off a little bit. I definitely think they're in play at their ownership. I just think it's going to be very low because everyone's playing the Dodgers. Listen, I'm going to have some Dodgers exposure, but I also want to be looking around and try to find some lower-owned spots that could be really contrarian, and I think that could be the Yankees and Aaron Judge.
Giancarlo Stanton, one Yankees hitter that I'm going to make sure to get over the field on. I don't think he'll be super high owned, but smashes lefties and really ideal hitting conditions in Yankee Stadium tonight. Seeing some concerns about Minnesota weather, so I will look that up quickly. We are through all 7 games on the slate, man, going. So let's get to the stacks. Your favorite stack today and favorite contrarian stack.
Yeah, favorite stack will be, it's probably the Dodgers. I'll go with Dodgers as my favorite, and the contrarian one will be the Arizona Diamondbacks. I talked them up a lot earlier, so we'll go with Arizona as one of the contrarian.
Does look like some rain headed right toward Minneapolis. Looks fairly concerning to me, to be honest, which I'm not happy about because I was hoping to play quite a bit of Simeon Woods Richardson. So, yeah, we'll have to make the call on that one. Is that the? Yeah, okay, it does lock early. Game. So we'll have at least a decent amount of information, but that's only an hour from now. So, yeah, we'll have to make that call in Discord. Not sure about that. You went with the Dodgers, and then who was your contrarian stack?
Dodgers, and contrarian was Arizona.
I, too, am on the Dodgers as my favorite stack on the slate. Contrarian, I like Arizona, but I will go with the Guardians against Luis Castillo. Probably mini stacks, mostly with the left-handed power, but I could see them doing some damage to Luis Castillo and the Mariners. Most important pitcher today, Mangone. I think my answer 2 minutes ago was going to be Woods Richardson. I don't know if I can name him now, but what are you looking at for your most important pitcher?
Yeah, most important pitcher, probably Logan Allen. I love the spot against Seattle. They just strike out so much. So I'll go with Logan Allen as most important pitcher.
Like him as well. It's partly due to his seemingly microscopic ownership, but I'm going to be well over the field on Mr. Mitch Spence at 6,600 and 3% ownership. I'll probably have, I don't know, at least 20% Mitch Spence, something like that. So he'll be important for me for sure. In terms of who I'm actually playing the most of, I do think that's going to end up being Spencer Arrighetti, but he'll be obviously very chalky and frankly even chalkier if Woods Richardson looks too risky to play. A lot of people will make that direct pivot to Spencer Arrighetti. So, yeah. Home run call, Mangone. Who's going yard today?
All right. Do I say? I don't want to say any Coors guys. It just seems dumb to say them. So, I'll go with Christian Walker. We'll go Christian Walker. He hits one out. He'll be my home run call.
I will go with Josh Naylor going yard against Luis Castillo. Finally, we get to your favorite overall offensive player on the slate, Mangone.
Yeah, I probably will cop out and just say one of the Dodgers. Let's go with Ohtani. Obviously, he's the best guy. Can we not say him, or what do I have to do here?
That's all right. You can say Ohtani.
I think he is. I don't know. I hate this question because I feel like he's the best player for sure.
Yeah, it's all good. That's the question. You answered it honestly. That's all I can ask. I personally think Will Smith is the best offensive play once you consider the position he plays, the split that Ty Block has, Coors Field, all that stuff. So Will Smith, my favorite offensive player and maybe most owned hitter on the slate. That'll do it for us. Full hour of baseball knowledge and nonsense as well. Hopefully we'll get a high-scoring game, at least on the Dodgers side, in Coors Field today. Appreciate everybody watching. The show will, of course, be back Friday night. Fireworks should be a 3-man booth tomorrow with Stats and Steve Boyden, I believe, will be on the show tomorrow. So tune in for that one. Hit the like button on your way out. Sign up for runpuresports.com. Use promo code DC15 for all the winners in every sport. That'll do it for us. See you soon, Travis. For Mangone, I'm DC. We're out of here.